Patrick Touhey is here with the Show Me Institute on 95.7 FM KCMO, and you can always stream us by downloading that KCMO Talk Radio app. We had local elections in Missouri yesterday. Kansas City voters deciding to extend a quarter-cent sales tax for public safety infrastructure that will go towards a new jail downtown. Also, by a wide margin, Kansas City public school voters deciding to increase their own property taxes by an average of $200 per year for a $500 million infrastructure bond for Kansas City public schools. Patrick, it wasn't even close. 85% voting in favor. What's your takeaway there?
Well, no surprises. Good morning, Pete. None of the results were a surprise. There was one that I was kind of disappointed in, and that was Sugar Creek, Missouri, looking to privatize its water system, really just replace the city managing the water system with a private company managing the water system. That was defeated. That's the only thing that I was hoping might turn out a surprise, but everything else is predictable.
Well, Liberty added Liberty, and it was a 52-48 vote. It was close, but up in Liberty, they voted on adding a cent tax for public safety. So that's a pretty big tax up there.
Yeah, school bonds and safety taxes largely passed. And again, it's no surprise. Anybody who's lived in Kansas City knows that we generally say yes to everything. Mm-hmm. It is, more of a surprise because the people who live in Liberty and Kearney and up that way are at least perceived as people who got out of Kansas City because of taxes, and they want smaller government. So maybe that is a surprise. But across the board, nothing was shocking, I don't think.
Well, there was a stunner in the North KC mayor's race. Bryant DeLong, the incumbent, losing that one. I say that tongue-in-cheek. I think 700 people voted in the election. But still, if you're an incumbent in a town of 5,000 people and you lose, something went disastrously wrong for you.
Yes. Well, look, a town like that is small enough where everybody knows everybody, and so it gets more personal, I guess, the smaller the
That's true.
The smaller the population.
That's true. I'm with you there. I mean, now Quentin Lucas, I want to share this tweet this X post from the mayor this morning, and just get your quick thoughts on it. He obviously was lobbying for the Kansas City public schools to get their $500 million bond, and he writes here on X this morning, "It's a new day for Kansas City public schools and a new day for Kansas City. Thank you for believing in our children and our community." Is it a new day, Patrick Touhey?
No, of course it's not a new day. Look, I wrote a op-ed in the Kansas City Star over the weekend pointing out that the Kansas City public schools have been awful for decades. They spend over $25,000 per pupil per student, and they still can't get proficiency rates above 30%. Spending $27,000 per student per year, that's not going to make any difference, and everybody knows it. What contributed to the overwhelming yes vote this time around is that the bond was going to give money to charter schools. So parents who have gotten their kids out of the public school system and into charter schools like, Academy Lafayette, for example, they were voting for this because they're going to get some money. But look, in the late 90s, the Kansas City Public School District spent more than any other school district in the United States. This is not a money problem with Kansas City. They have had, I'm trying to hold my tongue, they have had all the money they've ever wanted, and they just have demonstrated they are unwilling or unable to educate children. And this particular measure makes me crazy because what it's doing is increasing the cost of housing to poor people in Kansas City to fund a school district that will not teach those children who are poor to escape poverty. We're just increasing the cost of housing, and we're not delivering a service. And I don't think that's charitable at all. That is absolutely, I said in the piece, it's morally reprehensible. It's a shame. It's not a surprise, but it's a real shame.
Don't bite your tongue. That's not good radio when you do that. So just let it rip. But that is very well said. Patrick Touhey with the Show Me Institute. So we have not spoken to you in a few weeks, but I want to get your reaction to news that now we basically have a full-blown border war going on between Kansas and Missouri over the Chiefs and the Royals. The state of Missouri is now talking about their version essentially of star bonds to keep the teams in the state of Missouri. We knew this was going to get to this point once Kansas decided that they were going to play the border war game under the guise of, we're just trying to do our part as a good neighbor and make sure the teams stay here. So, I blame Kansas for sparking the border war, but I think it's naive to think that Missouri was not going to respond. So here we are, and what do you make of it?
We have talked about this for months or, over a year. All of this is tough to nail down. It's tough to know what's going on because ultimately the Royals just haven't put out their demands. What is it they're asking for? I don't think that Kansas offers a competitive package because what the teams want, what every team wants, is to be protected from losses, to protect their investors from losses. And so you can give them, you can give them the star bonds and they can hoover up a bunch of tax money. But if it's not enough, their investors are going to lose their shirt. What they want is cities to back up to cover the losses. And again, I'm not proud of it, but Missouri is in a much better position to make a bad offer. It made me laugh.
That is such a good point. Missouri's in a better position to make a bad offer. You're right, because no one's ever tried the star bond deal on this size of a scale. And if they can't create the sales tax revenues to pay off the bonds, well, guess who's on the hook, right? And look, with apologies to your friend there, Kevin Keatsman, if the star bonds were the deal that he thinks they are, they'd already have broken ground. They just aren't. And the guys who look over the money deals on the Chiefs and Royals side know that. What made me laugh the other day, and I want to write about this, is Quentin Lucas said he had somehow found 1.4 to 1.6 billion for the Royals. The team is only worth 1.3 billion. I mean, that's what they were estimated in the Forbes list. Why don't we just save ourselves some money, keep them at the K, and maybe we can buy the team ourselves? But it's just absurd. And, I need to write about this too. I've got a backlog of things I want to cover, but in the last year's city budget, the mayor said that a city of this size we don't have the population or the finances to service it. I mean, we literally are too big to fund basic services, and yet he thinks he's found $1.5 billion to give to the Royals. I mean, it's all just smoke and mirrors until the Royals kind of put up with what they want. This is all just kind of vaporware. You think Quentin Lucas has an ego now? Just make him the owner of the Kansas City Royals through the taxpayer. I don't know about that, but I see your point there, Patrick. I see your point on that front.
I can't imagine that we should go the way of Green Bay and own our team, but some scale is in order.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. So you're right. The city, I can't get a read on this city deal and the magical $1 billion+ that they seem to have come up with on behalf of the Royals or for the Royals to say in Kansas City, Missouri. I can't quite figure it out. I can't get a read on it, but I still think Missouri's in the lead on this whole thing because the city's basically willing to do whatever it takes now, and the state's going to kick in something here too, it looks like.
I just want to make sure that at some point the people who are paying for this have a chance to vote on it. That's what's important to me. Even if it passes, the people who are paying John Sherman, that are giving all this money to billionaires, should have a say.
But if they restructure it in a way where it's kind of through the bonding process versus a sales tax, they don't have to do that.
No, I understand that. I understand it's possible that there may not be a vote. I want there to be a vote. If you look at what happened in Nashville, the city council had said for the longest time, we're not going to build a stadium for the Titans. And then they went ahead and did. Mm-hmm. And I think a number of them lost elections, and the mayor didn't run for re-election, was replaced by somebody who opposed the vote. So again, I understand people get nervous about this, but the whole point of a democracy is we've got to vote.
Yeah. But you've heard from both teams, and I don't think they're interested in that. I'm not saying that's right, but I think that they will do whatever they can to avoid a vote.
Absolutely. Look, I would too. If I were them, I would say, look, give me as much money with as little oversight as possible. That's exactly what I'd be asking for.
I'll give Kansas this much, though. At least they didn't extend their deadline on the Star Bond offer. It still is set for, I think, June 30th of this year, where they could have extended that another 12 months just to kind of stay in the game, so to speak. But it looks like we should have an answer here in the next 2.5 months.
Yeah, I hope so. Again, for better or worse, let's stop talking about this. But again, all these stories, they suggest that there's movement. I don't think there's any movement.
And I'll let you and Keatsman hash that out on your own time. All right?
Very good.
All right, Patrick. Thanks so much, my man. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
All right. There you go. Patrick Touhey on KCMO Talk Radio.